Hey, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling, taking a look at AEW Dynamite, aka Fyter Fest Week One, on July 1st, 2020. Overall impressions of the show early on. Man, they did a great job. It was an entertaining show. I went back and watched the NXT matches that people pointed out in their analysis. I did not watch it in real time. I really just focus on AEW Dynamite now. But I did look at the NXT stuff, and I gotta say, the two biggest shocks and the general takeaways for me were that the women's match for AEW, Hikaru Shida and Penelope Ford, I think it really held up against the NXT women's match, which shocks me because I adore Sasha Banks, and I think that those matches really held up against each other, which is a definite score for AEW. And AEW didn't have a match that I would characterize as boring or went too long, and NXT certainly couldn't say the same. So kudos to AEW Fyter Fest. Let's jump into it. So we got Jericho on commentary, which now they've got 4 commentators, which looks a little ridiculous, I gotta say, and it's a little head scratcher during COVID, but that's neither here nor there. I'm sure there's other people who would love to talk about that kind of thing more. There's women in bikinis all over the place, which got a out loud laugh from me. It just did. It's very AEW in the sense that it's like feel good, have a good time. I would have thrown some dudes out there in Speedos. Not because that's something I would personally enjoy necessarily, but because I think it would have got a nice balance and would have got a chuckle from everybody. And God forbid, have more straight women watching wrestling. Boy, do we miss that. Boy, do we miss that. Match number 1. And again, AEW has done this thing on Wednesdays where they start off with a match much bigger than you're expecting. And this is no exception. I would have assumed that Santana and Ortiz against Private Party would have been first, perhaps. But no. They jump right out with MJF and Wardlow against Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. MJF gives us a promo. Very good one. This match was fantastic. This is obviously the feel-good show. This is Star Wars, and then next week I highly suspect is going to be Empire Strikes Back. But this is definitely Star Wars, right? Their one dangerous spot that really bugged me was Luchasaurus going out and falling on top of Wardlow. It just looked wonky. Wardlow looked like he could have been badly hurt. Not that he didn't do a good job basing and catching. He did. It's just really clunky. In fact, there were 2 or 3 times tonight where I kind of held my breath for AEW people to not get hurt. Now, that can be a good thing overall, but these were just spots that looked like they didn't come across clean or were just downright unnecessary. But the match is good, and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus go over in probably as close a way as you can to not take away from anybody. You had MJF whiffing, or not whiffing, but hitting the incorrect person with the dynamite ring. Wardlow then taking every finisher and collaboration under the sun, and then getting pinned. I thought the spot where Marco Stunt attempted to interfere really came across very badly, of like, what the hell is he interfering for? And aren't they the baby faces? And doesn't that put the heels at a numeric disadvantage? Again, is this major stuff? Not necessarily, but it sort of does indicate like sort of sloppy thinking. I think there's a way that you can get Marco Stunt involved without it just being blatant babyface interference. It's what it is. Go to a commercial. We come back. We're talking about the All Elite Puppy Bowl, Puppy Royal happening a la the Puppy Bowl that happens during the Super Bowl. They're going to do some equivalent in wrestling with puppies. Ludicrous, hilarious, and again, one of these things that can happen in All Elite Wrestling, it's the give and take, right? Like I've always said, they need an adult in the room, which sounds very patronizing, but what I mean is somebody who's not one of the boys, someone who's not necessarily like an overriding booker type, but somebody to catch the little details and to smooth things out. But then again, what I don't want is a bureaucracy put in place where something like the All Elite Puppy Royal can't happen. Where there is a strength in just running with an idea. And I know you're saying, Steve, it's the Puppy Royal, who cares? But it's just the vibe that AEW is successfully putting off of, we're fun, and at NXT, everything's freaking dark and brooding. And it's not that NXT doesn't pull off some great stuff. I mean, the Carrion stuff, I mean, it's phenomenal. Like, that's the other thing that I watched with a great deal of interest, and it's great. But just the overall vibe of that show is not fun. And they need to do something about that. All right. So we go into Archer and Janela fighting in the crowd. That looked really good. They're promoting the matches. And then there's a notable problem. Obviously, Moxley's not going to be there. And man, that card next week looks not so great, but we'll see if my opinion about that changes as I go through my notes. We have clips sort of highlighting how we've arrived at this point with Penelope Ford against Hikaru Shida, and now we're going into the match. The referee tossing Sabian right off the jump looked great. And it looked great because then you got the impression, well, Penelope Ford is at a disadvantage. And you would be right, of course, but then it was a good exhibition for Ford and Hikaru Shida. I think a lot of Hikaru Shida, I don't think she's that polished, but she's really young. She's not supposed to be. I think she's the right person to have the title. And I also think that this was a great exhibition for Penelope Ford. And if it's true that Kenny Omega helped them put this match together, boy, he gets kudos as well. But Penelope Ford looked every bit a star. That move where she backbended out of the way of the high cross body got a rare thing for me, which is to look shocked. I'm rarely shocked by a move, and I was shocked by that one. And it was so simple and so well executed. We go to commercial break during it. We come back. It's just super great. They're providing the AEW Dark match results scrolling on the bottom, which I love, and I'm glad they're continuing that. That's why I'm pointing this out now. I want them to continue that. And then the psychology at the end of Penelope Ford actually kicking out when you don't expect it, but finally getting leveled with that front-running knee that Hikaru Shida used to put down Nyla Rose. Fantastic. Good for Penelope. It's one of these matches where Penelope Ford is elevated in defeat. Absolutely happened, and Hikaru Shida is strengthened, and her championship reign continues. Great stuff. They got the move study by Taz, looking at Jon Moxley's stuff. Super great. I'm glad they're continuing that. Again, AEW, it's about consistency, yeah? Ratings come up, ratings come down. Are they going to suffer from Jon Moxley's match not happening next week? Yes, but then they'll benefit from it happening the week after, and they're already beginning to promote that show. It's wonderful. It's great. Moxley's not going to be there. Oh, well. Hopefully they'll deal with it, yeah? And they will through Taz's promo later, which is fucking unbelievable. My favorite promo that I've heard in quite some time, besides perhaps Edge's. Just really, really great. I think Taz is doing a phenomenal job, and he does this great job analyzing Moxley's stuff, but sort of implying that Brian Cage's stuff is better. That's great. I get a text from Cody on the mass texting thing saying like, oh, after Shida, I'm coming up. Again, I think that's a really cool kind of thing for their, hardcore fan base who's going to be signed up for those texts. is wrestling fans. And so, great. Let us know you're coming out. So, we've got the, and they promote during the commercial break here, they promote the AEW podcast, which I do not listen to, but I probably should, because I think Tony Schiavone does a great job on podcasts in general. And Aubrey Edwards is somebody whose referee work I think is really phenomenal. So we go to Jake Hager against Cody. A really good match. I think Jake Hager's wife is the unexpected MVP of this feud, of this thing. There's just some way that she carries herself, and the spots that she did where she walked on Cody's back and slapped him in the face. Somebody pointed out, because I was I'm just having to resign myself to the fact, and this might make me seem like an AEW homer, but I've just resigned myself to the fact that bigger Cody matches, or any Cody match, is just going to have a whole bunch of interference. And that's just going to be part and parcel of the story that they always tell. I do think the notion that a slap from Hager's wife is worth Dustin coming out and actually interfering in the match is spurious. Though, if what they're going for is a more complex dynamic of when Cody finally loses this title, that there's a part of the fan base that will be like, well, he kind of deserves to lose it. I guess that makes a kind of sense. And now some people listening to this might go and see this makes no sense, but you got to understand part of what's exciting about AEW for me is that a lot of the psychology and things that they're trying are different. And in that difference, I want to see, some things are not going to work, but I think Cody's one of these performers that's big enough that he can kind of carry a thing through. I'm just gonna stick with that. Okay. I love the tale of the tape that they put up with Jake Hager and Cody before their match. I love that Hager attacked Arn at random, but it was set up a bigger strategy. I love that they decided that this match was the first that deserved the split screen thing with the commercial, so we didn't have to go away from it. I loved the finish, though I think it was wonky in the explanation. From what I understand, it's Jake Hager grabs the head and arm choke. Cody, in kind of a desperation or in a pre-planned thing with Arn, which again I think could have been made a little clearer if that's what they were going for, gets the pin on Hager, but Hager, hearing the referee slapping the mat, interprets it. And by the way, ref Mike Posey, great job. Really great job. He was asked to do a lot in this match, and he pulled it all off very successfully. But Jake Hager, hearing the slaps of the mat, interpreted that as a tapping out happening. So that's why he interpreted. And then again, this is when having 4 commentators or whatever is not as good as having 1 or 2. Because I think this is a story that could have been put off clearly and quickly by the commentators. Jake Hager thinks that Cody tapped out, but it was the 3 count from the ref. Done. Yeah? I'm just guessing that this is what they were all going for. It makes sense based on the story that they're telling. Jake Hager gets mad and punches the referee. You don't see a lot of referee abuse stuff in general in wrestling anymore, which I think is really good. And so this gets the appropriate reaction, which is a storm of referees and officials coming out, which again belies the thing about, then why were they letting Lance Archer beat up staff members with no consequence? Though I think that they're getting away from that based on the last AEW Dark, and I'm here for it, as the kids say. Because this is the reaction it should get when a quote-unquote civilian, or at least somebody who's not a wrestling performer, is struck. Good stuff. Darby Allin segment. Cool as shit. They're doing a good job of taking off the eye off the ball that Darby Allin has been here. And then fuck, man. I'm not even a skateboard guy, really. My kids are much more. That's why they like the Darby Allin. But he pulls off that backflip onto the skateboard and then down the ramp. Even if you don't know what the fuck skateboarding is, if you're not impressed by that, fucking, you're an idiot. Good for Darby Allin. I think they cover up Darby Allin's relative weaknesses really well and emphasize his strengths. The cool factor remains Darby Allin. Commercial, we come back. Orange Cassidy joins at the commentary table, which drives Jericho crazy. Jericho's great at doing this kind of thing. Now we have Santana and Ortiz against Private Party. Okay, I'm going to get on my old school Booker high horse for a second here. Having a tag match followed by a tag match for your main event, it's bad booking. There's no reason that this match needed to go here. There's no reason that you couldn't have flip-flopped this in Jake Hager and Cody that I can see. I think what it does is it tends to point out the fact that tag matches are gimmick matches. Yeah, not feeling this. Unless their thing was, well, we got to have the winner of this match take on the winner of the next match to substitute for Moxley, which, by the way, I think is a smart move, and I think it's a great way to go. But again, I call it the old school Booker in me, putting two tag matches, because remember, tag matches are gimmick matches. At the end of the day, they're gimmick matches. We think of them as an important part of the card, as well they should, and AEW's certainly done a stellar job of shoring up their tag division. And not just by acquiring FTR, though that's part of it. It's just reestablishing people who needed a boost, like Butcher and Blade, and emphasizing the strengths and de-emphasizing the weaknesses. I think this match highlighted it. I'll get off they shouldn't book two tag matches next to each other, especially on a 5-match card. I get that it's a problem because you have 3 tag matches, right? But just mix it up. It's not that hard to do. Okay, Santana and Ortiz, I think the world of. I think they're my favorite tag team in AEW. I think that they are consummate pros, and they were the exact right team to work with Private Party, who I find to be hit and miss and spotty and wonky and dangerous at times, though spectacular in bursts. And I think Matt Hardy being there gave them a gravitas. I think Santana and Ortiz did as good a job I've seen. And again, these are the kind of things that aren't pointed out by other people and not really noticed that much. But I notice you. I see you, Santana and Ortiz. And what I see are two guys that did as good or better job basing for other people than I have seen in a long, long time. I would imagine that the job that Santana and Ortiz and Matt Hardy combined did with Private Party, it is the best I've seen Private Party look. Their win felt very justified in the context of the match. That I would argue, and I'm going to put this challenge out for myself as well as other people watching and the people involved in the matches. I would say that Santana and Ortiz will do a better job basing for Private Party than the Bucks and FTR will do for the Lucha Brothers, and that the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and Blade will do for the Young Bucks in their match next week. I honestly think that. I was so blown away with how good Private Party looked. And of course, they get credit for that too, but the common denominator, the denominator that has changed, is Santana and Ortiz and Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy being there, I kind of saw his fingerprints on this match as far as structure goes. Though this was a Santana and Ortiz match, and I think they get credit for that, ultimately. I think it's just really good stuff. They give them the split screen, which they've justified and earned. And it's another thing that moving the tag match to match number 3 and moving Jake Hager and Cody move to match number 4 does for you. Instead of it just seeming like, well, Cody always gets special preferential treatment in his matches because he's the first to get the split screen. Now you've given it to Santana and Ortiz and Private Party. And then so Jake Hager, I'm sorry, I keep belaboring the point. You know how I am. Boy, that freaking Hurricane Rana into the cutter finish could have looked really wonky. I think when the Hurricane Rana is used to launch somebody forward into a spot instead of flipping them over, There's only a few people who can really pull that off. Rey Mysterio's one, where he would use a Hurricane Rana to basically set up the 619. And people got good at selling and taking that. But I think, Private Party, it looks really good as a finisher. But again, AEW's cutter crazy, and again, that's fine, but it makes, again, giving QT the cutter, it really blunts the impact of that when everybody in their freaking cat does a freaking cutter. Just saying. But that's a general note. But it looked phenomenal. And Santana and Ortiz, huge fucking fans. In a league where tag teams really matter and where they have some of the best, and they've done a really good job of building this up, Santana and Ortiz are my favorite tag team. We've got an interview after the match with Paige and Omega, putting over their dynamic. Then we've got the matches for next week. Let's look at them. We got Nyla's going to be wrestling a match. And all of a sudden, we have a match of very little consequence. Unless Tessa Blanchard is showing up as her mystery opponent, it's just not a pay-per-view match, right? Just to have Nyla wrestling. SCU versus Dark Order. Here's something else that I think AEW doesn't get credit for that it deserves credit for. The Dark Order thing does not work as a main event anything. True. So now they've shifted gears and they're kind of making them the sort of soap opera-y part of the mid-card. This idea that they're sort of recharging and rebuilding. I think that works. I think it's the only way they can go, and they're doing it. Congratulations. I think it's great. But that's a good match. Sure. Archer against Janela. Oh, man, that's a foregone conclusion match, right? Archer and Nyla both squashing people. Maybe I'll be proven wrong and Janela will be elevated in his loss, which I'm assuming is going to happen. Okay. But we had that happen Lance Archer gave plenty on his AEW Dark match, to be honest. So they have their work cut out for them, is what I'm saying. And then we got Orange Cassidy versus Jericho, which has now become incredibly significant. I'm glad they did the big spot with them last week to really put over that fact. And then we've got this tag team clusterfuck match, which I'm beginning to grow more and more in love with, the Young Bucks and FTR. Again, wonky booking, putting them together. That's some Russo shit. Wacky tag team partner, mixed up tag team partners that are forced to team together. But they're taking on Butcher and Blade and the Lucha Brothers. This is obviously supposed to be an exhibition of our tag teams are better than yours, and I'm here for it, as the kids say again. Then we get Taz cutting a promo. It's fucking great. Calling out the WWE for not caring about their workers as much as AEW without directly saying it. The term sloppy shop, saying AEW does not run a sloppy shop, implying that WWE does, is a broadside shot that I hear and I see and I popped for. Him putting over the match in 2 weeks, and him putting over the fact that he's not disappointed about it, and neither is Brian Cage. Again, really smart. It feels like everybody's aboard on AEW. They still have their agendas and the things that they want and gimmick, of course, but it does feel like it's a team that's all pulling in the same direction, man. And Taz's promo highlighted that. Somebody wants to get word of Taz that I think he's the shit. Yeah, man, it's fucking great. Fucking great. And people I was watching with, the person I was watching with went, Taz has become a great promo. Taz was always a great promo. He's always good at sort of filtering his promo through his persona. He's always good at it. It's just now he's in an expanded role in his promos, and fucking it's good. His commentary's good, and Brian Cage very much looks the part. He's not doing too much to take away. I like it. And you know what, AEW, of course it's not great that Moxley's not there next week. And of course there's going to be wringing hands and little beads of sweat amongst wrestling pundits about, is that going to cost them the thing against, because North American title against Adam Page, it's big. Yeah, it's all true. Who gives a fuck? This is a marathon. And now you get a great fucking main event for 2 weeks from now. And their main event. Chuck and Trent. I was really hard on Chuck Taylor in that match that they had against Jericho, and you know, and they're covering their weaknesses, right? Jericho. Hopefully, Jericho's got it together for his match with Orange Cassidy next week. I'll say that. Chuck Taylor looked better here. Them coming to the ring in Trent's mom's van. Fucking come on, man. That's some funny ass shit. Funny ass shit. Already a fan of Trent because I claim that he carried that whole fucking match and segment along with Sam. Like he carried it. And he carried it tonight, man. He really held up his end. Hangman Page and Kenny Omega. What can I say? It was a great fucking match. FTR's there to watch it at the ringside. I like how they use their announcers table. It's not dissimilar to how WWE uses theirs, but AEW seems to get more out of it. We get the split screen. We get a series of hot tags throughout this match in different ways. But the sequence close to the end was about as flawlessly done as you're going to do this stuff. Any match that Kenny Omega agents or is involved with often comes in danger of things falling apart, but it doesn't fall apart here. Hangman Page looks great. Kenny Omega looks great. Chuck Taylor definitely held up his end, and he was much more about the facial expressions and all that kind of stuff. The random hug thing, I get that they've got to work their gimmick, but it really did feel like it took away from the presentation of the overall match, just being honest here. And then finally succumbing to the buckshot lariat. But Trent was the star, man. Really, really good. I would love to see Trent in an elevating feud for himself. Not that I'm saying split up that team. Come on, I'm not saying that. But you got a lot of tag stuff going on in AEW. If I would love to see Trent against Shawn Spears, who's a guy I think who they're really trying with and who's doing a good, serviceable job. But they need a Mad Dog, Buzz Sawyer, Tommy Rich kind of feud. And I think Trent and Shawn Spears can give you that, where you're not expecting that feud to draw in the short term, but you're doing a feud where both guys are elevated and feel like that they've paid a price for that feud. That's how much I like Trent Barreto. Anyway, that's the end of the night one of Fyter Fest. Again, a very entertaining show. It was babyfaces rain all night, was it not? Holy moly. And then we've got a card set for next week. So it's exciting stuff. Anyway, this is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling, for a look of Platinum versus AEW Dynamite / Fyter Fest Night 1.